Hydrocephalus Awareness Month. Never in a million years did I think I would know what the word hydrocephalus meant, let alone be so much more educated on the human brain than I thought possible. My name is Vicky Blandford and I have two beautiful girls, a 7-year-old called Emma and my youngest Lienke, who's 3 years old, and she is my hydro baby. I just want to share with you today a little bit on our journey to getting Lienke diagnosed. My hope is that even if your diagnosis is a little bit different, that you will find hope from our journey, and that it will help you in some way, even if it's just to not make you feel so alone. So Lienke made her appearance on the 19th of July in 2018. She was this beautiful, chubby little girl with lots of hair, and just had the sweetest nature right from the start. I remember thinking when she was born that everyone was right and that second babies are easier. And I remember just thinking how chilled she was and how much she slept. I was a little bit worried about her in her first day of life because she wouldn't really drink much. But the nurses really reassured me and said that she was probably just tired. And the staff was happy with her, so they released us and we could go home to start our new journey together in our new life.
Baby, my sister.
Yeah, it's your sister. In Lienke's first few months of life, there were a few things that made it a difficult journey. She was hospitalized twice in her first 4 months. The first time she was only 4 or 5 days old, and it came back that she most likely had a UTI, a urinary tract infection. And her second hospitalization was around 4 months, and she had chickenpox, and I don't even know at all where she could have gotten chickenpox. She wasn't in a play school, she was with me. I never really went out with her much after her first hospital stay, and if we did go out, she was attached to me in a wrap. So and that experience was really tough because I also got chickenpox and my husband was overseas. So she has great timing, and we both got a secondary infection from it, where the blister turns black and red, and she was really sick. I mean, gosh, I was also really sick. And I had chickenpox as a child, so it was an extra little added bonus, thank you. It was a really hard time. I mean, I'm making a joke of it now, but it was a really tough time. But things that stood out to me that worried me in her first few months were just crying a lot. She really struggled to lie down flat. So the only times I really found I could comfort her was if she was drinking on me, or if I held her upright up on my shoulder, and rocked her, walked with her, or my husband, we called it our war cry. He would go, hey, 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 with her and really tap her on the bum. And those were the only things that really comforted her. She cried often and a lot in those first few months and really seemed like something was bothering her. And it was such a contrast from the first few days when I thought, oh my word, second babies are easier. What an easier journey, to just 2 weeks down the line after she was born, everything not being okay anymore, and really seeing that my sweet little baby was really struggling with something. So the crying and screaming fits, I mean, she would sometimes cry herself into this like choking fit, where you had to blow in her face just to get her to breathe again and to kind of snap out of it. The other thing was that her little hands were often in fists, and if you wanted to hold her hand, you had to open her fingers to get your finger in. So her hands were often in fists, not always, but often. balled into little fists. Her neck strength really never caught up. It never developed in relation to her peers. So we called her our little bobblehead because she looked like a bobblehead doll. She was just, and she really struggled to pick her head up. It was hard for her. Tummy time was hard for her, and sitting in her little bumbo seat was a struggle for her, really. She would always just kind of slip, kind of go to the side. Yeah, it was the hands and the crying and the bobblehead, and then some of her milestones were delayed. And they're so young at that age that I didn't really pay much attention to the milestones, but I did notice small things like being able to roll over and things like that her peers were already being able to do, that I know Emma was able to do at that age. Yeah, I think that those were really, and the startle reflex. Her startle reflex worked overtime. So the startle reflex is when they lie down, and we as adults also have it to some degree. When we sleep and you dream you're flying or you're falling, and or if you step into a hole. Please tell me I'm not the only one that dreams that. When she was in a lying down position, she would grab up into the air, and babies do that. They call it the startle reflex, and it is normal. But hers worked overtime, and I brought it up with the doctors often, but I was always reassured that it's normal. I just don't think they realized how often it happened. So she would grab into the air and then scream, and I would just take her hands and push her down on her chest just to bring her some comfort, and then hold her to calm her. Yeah, it was really a strange thing, the startle reflex, and that stopped. The fist, the startle reflex, excessive crying when she lay down, that all went away after her surgery. I'm still getting there. So at her 14-week vaccines, the nurse weighed her and did all her measurements like they always do and wrote it in the clinic book. And when I got home with her, I always check their books just to make sure everything's in and just to see for myself what everything says. The nurse didn't mention anything to me, but on the first page her head circumference read 44 centimeters, and it stood out to me so glaringly. And in brackets it said the normal range is 37 to 42 centimeters. And I had the strangest sensation, and my stomach really just dropped, and I felt immediately emotional. I remember calling my mom and saying to her, "Oh my word, Lienke's head circumference isn't right, it's out of the range." And I remember that she just tried her best to comfort me and to reassure me, but I didn't feel great. So that was on a Friday. I made an appointment for Lienke at the pediatrician for the Monday morning, and he did her measurement and found the same, came also to 44 centimeters. But he wasn't concerned because she didn't really have other symptoms. So all he said was like, she probably just has a big head, but that I should come back in a month and then he would remeasure it just to be safe. But I shouldn't worry too much. Yeah. Then after that, Lienke got her chicken pox, and 3 weeks after our first measurement, we went back to him with my eldest because she wasn't well, and I just asked him to check Lienke while we were there. Going to the pediatrician is expensive. So I just asked him if he could do it in the same appointment for me. I just want to quickly add this, that when in the beginning of December, just a short while before we went for our second measurement, my parents looked after the girls one night. We went out to a work supper with my husband's work, and my mom phoned me just as I finished my main course, and she was like, "I don't know what to do anymore. I've burped her, I've fed her, I've changed her, I've held her, I've rocked her, I've done everything I know to do, and she's not calming down. Like, I hate to ask you, but I don't know anymore." So I arranged a lift for Richard, and I left immediately, jumped in my car and came home. And my parents were waiting at the door for me with her, and handed her over, and all they said was like, "We have no idea how you cope with this. We don't know how you do this every day. and I'm sorry that I had to phone you. And they left. They closed the door behind them. And I remember then just feeling for the first time that my emotions and feelings were validated and that my concerns were real. And for the first time since she was born, I really felt like someone saw what I saw and understood. And I felt normal in what I was feeling. And it really was nice to know that I'm not insane. Yeah. Anyway, so her second measurement, her head had grown 3.5 centimeters in those 3 weeks since we first saw doctor about this. And he'd still commented about how often I went to the pediatrician in those first few months of her life. I was there a lot. It became a thing, it became a joke because I'd gone so much. And I really did feel like the paranoid mom and the difficult mom and somebody who was always looking for fault and a problem. And it wasn't a nice space to be in. I felt very alone in that. But in that moment when he said her head had grown 3.5 centimeters in the 3 weeks, you just kind of go like, see? But still he wasn't really concerned. Still he didn't feel she had much of the symptoms that children would have that growth. Anyway, something obviously had to be checked, something was up, there were red flags, so he scheduled a sonar for us that evening. And we met him at a different hospital. I went home with Lienke, fetched my husband and sorted out Emma. And then we went to the other hospital where the sonar machine was that he needed for this. And they do the sonar on the fontanelle. And her fontanelle had been a bit bulgy, which was another sign. It wasn't indented or even flat. It was a bit bulgy. So he arrived a bit late because he had an emergency, and the mood was really light. It was very light-hearted, very jovial, very joking. We had this nice banter, and he took Lienke from us and started the sonar, and he said something to me, and I was in the middle of my joke retort when I saw his face change, and he pursed his lips together and he went sheet white. I mean, all the color drained from his face. I don't think I've ever seen that happen to someone in front of my eyes. But I gripped Richard's hand in that moment and I clutched his arm, and I remember looking at him, trying to find reassurance, and he just looked as worried as I was, and we both knew something was very wrong in that moment. And I remember the room just going awkwardly quiet, really. And after what felt like forever, as cliched as that sound, it really did feel like forever, he turned to us and he said, "It's not good." And he told us that Lienke had fluid in her brain. And this always makes me emotional. But a million things go through your mind, and a million concerns and a million questions. And I remember trying to just tell myself, "Vicky, keep it together and listen, pay attention, you need to pay attention." And I remember listening to him and just trying to take everything in that he was saying and asking questions and kind of really keeping it together and managing to stay in that moment with him. And he gave Lienke to us, and I turned to him and I said, she's going to be okay, right? And he said, "You need to know that she's probably going to get brain surgery, and there's nothing simple about brain surgery." And an inner panic instantly rose because I couldn't actually believe what I was hearing. Brain surgery, she's like 4 months old. What are you saying? It was so confusing, really, a lot of emotions. And he asked us to give him a day to get the best surgical team together for her. He called it his A-team. And he needed time to arrange. He needed time to arrange the MRI and everything for her because it was so close to Christmas time. A lot of the doctors had gone on leave. So it was a bit of a difficult time for him to find who he was hoping to find. So he sent us home to go pack our hospital bags and to prepare ourselves and to really just spend some good time together. He ushered us to the door, and I remember the door closing behind me, and I remember just hearing the sobs leave me and seeing this family in front of me that was waiting for their family to have their first baby. And they all just looked at me, and they were obviously so happy. They're waiting for their new arrival, and there were about 15 of them. It was insane. And I remember just starting to like fall apart, really. And I started to run. I started to run and walk faster, just to try and get away from the situation and to not spoil that moment for them. And Richard came in next to me, and he just put his arm in under me and kind of lifted me up and tried to half carry me, to the car. So I really fell apart then. I really did. I lost it. And he took Lienke from me. She was in her car seat. And I remember getting to the car and phoning my mom, and she lost it. And I had to hang up the phone because I couldn't deal with her emotion and my emotion. I remember feeling angry with her in that moment. And yeah, that was really how our diagnosis came about. So that was on the 12th of December. It was my parents' wedding anniversary. I'll never forget it. And on the 13th we stayed home with her. My husband had to go to work and sort stuff out so that he could be finished with work for the year and be with us. And so that was the 13th that we got off and prepared ourselves. And then on the 14th, which was my mom's birthday, we were admitted at 6 a.m. and the doctor had gotten his A-team together. He managed to bring those that had gone on leave back for her surgery, and then the neurosurgeon that he wanted was coincidentally at the hospital for that week. So yeah, on the 14th she had her MRI at 11 o'clock, confirmed everything. Her ventricles were very enlarged, and she was formally diagnosed with hydrocephalus on the 14th of December. After that MRI, our neurosurgeon came and talked to us for about an hour about everything. And then on the 15th she had her surgery. And I'll tell you about the surgery in our next episode. I just really wanted to share our process of getting diagnosed in this one, because I want to say, like, Mom, if you have a gut feeling or an instinct about your child or your baby, then you follow that and you fight for your baby and you fight for your child and you advocate. Because if I hadn't persevered and if I hadn't kept going back thinking like something doesn't feel right, she would have been undiagnosed for much longer and the damage would have been greater. So you trust your gut and you follow your instinct, and moms just know their kids and spend the most time with their kids. We know more about them than the doctors do. So I hope that encourages you. To the hydro warriors out there that might be watching, man, I admire you guys. You're amazing. You stay hydro strong, and I just send you much love. And thank you for watching. Okay, go. Bye.